again, let's discuss the announcement. So, more flexibility and options for software outsourcing. This is the first bit that is at the same time a little bit vague and also interesting because there's definitely a change there. So what they're saying here is Microsoft will introduce a new flexible virtualization benefit for customers that will greatly expand customer choice when outsourcing. So for those of you who are professionals in software licensing, or at least watched our channels, I know that you have heard the term of license mobility through software assurance. Overall, this doesn't look different to what is currently available through license mobility through software assurance. What they're saying is under this benefit, customers with software assurance or subscription licenses, exactly as software assurance, will be able to use their own licensed software to build or install solutions to run them on any outsourcer's infrastructure, except listed providers. We'll get to listed providers in the end. It's very important. Dedicated to shared. This gives partners that offer infrastructure outsourcing the opportunity to host the customer solutions on more flexible hardware configurations and enables hosting partners that sell license-included hosting to allow their customers to install customer license products like SQL Server, Microsoft 365 apps, and more on their hosted solutions. So let's look into the details. You already can bring your SQL Server licenses with software assurance to dedicated or shared hardware on a hosting provider. So what's not clear until we see the details here is whether they want to remove the entire license mobility partner requirement for hosting providers or not, because maybe they will just allow to bring it to any provider. But the big change here that will affect many customers is the ability to bring Microsoft 365 apps. Because right now, the list of providers where you may bring your Microsoft 365 apps to is very short. They're so-called QMTH partners. So not every hosting provider is permitted right now to run Microsoft 365 apps using the client license, well, using any licenses for that matter. So this is not clear. I thought at first that maybe this expands this allowance of bringing your own licenses to CSP program as well. But it doesn't, because what they say here is very explicitly it's software assurance only, and software assurance doesn't exist in CSP. However, again, it's all very vague. Or subscription.
What I hoped.
Maybe that's, yeah.
What I hoped was that this would mean that you could bring your own Windows Server licenses into your hoster, but that's not what they mean.
It's the next point. So what's your opinion on this? Because what they're saying here, customers with software assurance or subscription license, could these be the bit that potentially will allow us to, all the clients to bring their CSP licenses to services provider, which is right now not allowed?
Well, they touch on CSP licenses in a later part as well, right? So I think here the main difference is the Microsoft 365 apps, which was quite a heavy pain point for many outsourcers. And a lot of in compliance situations in SPLA, I think, arrived from not having the QMTH status. So this will definitely help a lot of hosters in hosting the right kind of solutions for their customers.
Yeah, you're probably right. So Frederick is asking a technical question. LinkedIn usually have a very bad quality. Do you have YouTube link? Sorry, that we are live on YouTube right now. The only problem is I don't really want to waste time to go on YouTube and reposting the link here. If you're subscribed to our channel on YouTube, you're going to see this live there, or you can click through other links, but whatever. I mean, if you're watching from LinkedIn, please bear with us, whether you don't have If you don't have our YouTube channel link, I'll post it later. So please bear with us. We have very limited time today to do this announcement. And as I promised, we're going to come back with more detailed review when the changes are actually published. So with this, in a different blog post, much shorter one and customer related, this is the only point where Microsoft clearly said they're going to introduce these changes on the 1st of October. For the rest of those bullet points, thank you, Floris. For the rest of these bullet points, they said nothing. They didn't promise the exact date. So that's the only point that we expect to actually be introduced on the 1st of October. And my opinion here is probably it'll be expanded to CSP. And Floris, thank you for mentioning that CSP is mentioned further in the blog post. And this is probably they just renaming the software assurance, license mobility through software assurance to flexible virtualization to actually include CSP in this entire program. Because previously there was a huge gap. You can bring your own licenses purchased through a volume licensing program to a services provider, but you can't do that with CSP licenses, subscription or not. You just can't. So
what I also wonder is they put in caps flexible virtualization as a benefit. So they probably will make a definition of what flexible virtualization will mean exactly. Because usually when Microsoft highlights something with a capital letter, then they will define this somewhere. So I'm very curious to see in the end what this will mean.
Yeah, this could be very exciting to finally, after so many months of almost being completely quiet, Microsoft is changing dramatically their licensing. And this is going to affect everyone, as I said, everybody, including providers and clients. And this is the bit that, Floris, that you just mentioned, Windows Server Virtual Core licensing. Included as a part of the flexible virtualization benefit, we also want to offer Windows Server in the license model that is compatible with shared server outsourcing. To that effect, we will introduce an option to license Windows Server on a virtual core basis, which never existed. Today, Windows Server is licensed by physical core, which means customers must have access to the physical server, blah, blah, blah. That's BS. I mean, the way it's worded, it's not BS, but the way it's worded is a bit cryptic. With the virtual core licensing option, customers can elect to license Windows Server by the number of virtual cores they're using in virtual machines, making Windows Server easier to license when virtualizing or outsourcing. This change will help cloud providers appeal to customers with legacy Windows Server workloads by enabling them to move these workloads from on-premises service to the cloud. What I think this is effectively Azure Hybrid Benefit expanded to SPLA providers. What's your take on that, Floris?
Well, when I read this, to me it reads like a new way of licensing Windows Server. So I'm very curious if they will update their catalog with Windows Server virtual core licenses. If that's the case, then I am quite unhappy with this clause because it would mean that all customers would potentially need to purchase a new type of license in order to be able to make use of this flexible virtualization option. The simplistic way would be to do what you said, extend Azure Hybrid Benefit to hosters. But that's not what they're describing here. They're describing a new licensing model.
Or an option, or renaming Azure Hybrid Benefit. So my bet is going to be very simple to Azure Hybrid Benefit. Maybe with, not necessarily the same exact terms, but similar terms, similar ability to just take it and bring it to a service provider. So that is about to be seen. And again, on the customer side of the update, there was no given date for it, but because it's a part of the flexible virtualization, maybe it will be announced on the 1st of October. The problem that I see here, which I already covered in a dedicated video that we did on this channel with Rich Gibbons, is the necessity to change the entire Windows Server licensing model on the side of the services provider. So how it's licensed right now is the services provider licenses the entire host for all the virtual machines unlimited with Windows Server data center licenses. And then clients, because they can't bring their own licenses, they basically pay rent virtual machines, and that cost is shared across all the virtual machines on the host. If clients are given an ability to bring their own licenses, will the services providers cost be discounted by deducting virtual machines from the hosts? Or will they have to deploy a separate infrastructure just for BYOL Windows Server machines? This can be life-changing change. It's a massive change. Or will they have from the 1st of October 2022 to stop reporting with the server data center per host and switch to per VM licensing on the SPLA side, which can, by the way, again, inflate the incoming costs for the services providers. So this will affect services providers. The question is how. Simplifying how customers can virtualize Windows 10 or Windows 11 with Microsoft 365. I really don't want to spend too much time on it until I see the details, because what they're saying right now is basically there'll be fewer licensing requirements to virtualize Windows 10 or Windows 11
This
when you
is a
don't have a
massive this
primary
is a
device.
massive change, though, especially the VDA requirement, because this is something that hits industries quite hard, where they have a lot of flex workers, etc. So we have been dealing with quite a lot of hospitals lately. They obviously buy a lot of F3 licenses, and Microsoft has always stipulated that a VDA add-on would always be required if these are not users that have a primary machine. So removing the requirement that the VDA add-on is no longer necessary will potentially save these hospitals a lot of money, because these VDA subscriptions are quite expensive.
They have actually a footnote here. Users still must have a primary device with qualifying operating system to run Windows locally on their PC. So yes, so they're not removing the qualifying operating system requirement for the local Windows operating system. But
No,
what that means that somebody can take an iPad and use a Windows
yeah, but
11 virtual machine without a VDA license.
so the qualifying operating system is not removed, but if you don't have a primary device, you no longer need that VDA add-on, which is huge. So if you share a
Yeah,
device, like all the
yeah, I
nurses
agree.
in a hospital, they're currently obligated to buy VDA licenses for all these users or devices, and that runs a lot of cost for them. And if they're removing that requirement, that would mean a massive decrease in many of these contracts that have that VDA requirement right now. They can immediately remove all their VDA licenses at the next anniversary after October 1st, 2022.
We have a date, by the way, again on this one. So, and I don't see anything that could stop Microsoft technically from implementing this in 2 days from now.
It's
So, fingers crossed.
it's in a month from now. October 1st is
It's in 2 days. So in a month. Sorry. So this is all. By the way, this is all then will be in effect not in 2 days from now, but in a month and 2 days from now. So sorry for this mistake of mine.
But this is an easy one to implement. Indeed, they need to change
Yeah.
the product terms for this one, and I don't see any other blockers.
Enabling sales of longer-term hosted solutions. During our discussions with cloud providers, we also heard a clear request for Microsoft to enable them to sell solutions with longer price stability for a customer. So I'm not anyway. I don't know what they whom they were talking to. I know amongst our client base exactly 0 providers that are concerned about this. But anyway, to address that, ask, if that's an ask, if we believe that, Microsoft will enhance the cloud solution provider program so that partners can sell customers either 1 or 3 year subscriptions for many products, including Windows Server, remote desktop services, and SQL Server, which they can already sell, can they not? I mean, these licenses are
Most
already,
of these on-prem licenses are usually
yeah.
you need to pay them for a 3-year term upfront.
So that's the thing. So we're also adding more monthly billing options in the CSP program for many of our 1-year offers.
So what I think they're adding here is the 1-year offer and the ability, hopefully, the ability to pay this on a monthly basis, because
Pay this
that
on a monthly
aligns
basis.
to how you buy cloud solutions in CSP. And a lot of, I think there are many companies, if they are buying their on-prem licenses through CSP, that they really were quite irked with Microsoft that they had to immediately pay upfront for 3 years the software solution. In 3 years, a lot can happen. So you might not even need that license for 3 years. So now they're granting a 1-year option, which is a lot better. And if they're also granting the option to have this invoice on a monthly basis to align with your CSP cost out, I think that's very beneficial.
But you still can't quit. You still commit to pay for those licenses, whether you don't need them or you do. It doesn't matter. They're not they're not bringing back the cancellation flexibility
No,
that we used to have before March. So it's still a 1-year or 3-year commitment. And what they actually are saying that the monthly billing options will be only on 1-year offers. 3-year offers are not mentioned, but maybe it's a mistake in this article because it's not an official document. It's an announcement, and it should be taken as an announcement. So
I think we definitely should wait for how they're gonna word this in the product terms or the CSP contract, wherever they're going to post this, because this is quite a. I think this is a welcome change if they do it. It brings your cost out in line with how you pay for your CSP licenses. Even if you can't immediately say, okay, get rid of this license, it's still yeah a payment method that aligns to how they are paying for their cloud subscription. So I think this is a welcome change.
So where the actually the answer to the question whether that's to enable hosting CSP is in the next point, just below
Right.
this one, and that's right. That's why they're introducing this. Is they want to enable. They want to do what they always wanted to do, but they're not going yet. They're not going full on to change everything in the SPLA services provider world. But what it looks like is we will see at least partial replace of SPLA licenses with CSP licenses. I think that was, I mean, the idea has been floating in the air in the last 2-3 years at least that Microsoft may cancel the SPLA program and replace it with a more flexible hosting-oriented CSP. So I don't see it being replaced yet. Except for,
That's in the final point, right?
yeah, except for the QMTH, but it's not still not replaced yet.
Oh,
But it's a big merge, and the problem that I see here for the end clients, I mean, obviously it does introduce new options, but if Microsoft completely removes the SPLA, that is for now the only truly flexible monthly licensing program which doesn't even have licenses for the end clients, strictly speaking, from the licensing point of view. Because with the new commerce experience, again, in my view, yes, of course, there's a more expensive monthly billing option. But what they did is they secured annuity. Microsoft loves annuity. Microsoft, as any business, loves long-term agreements, and this is what it is. If effectively replacing monthly flexible SPLA licenses with annual or 3-year CSP subscriptions. Again, nobody's pushed into this yet, but by
So
providing the
I know we've
yeah.
talked about this before, but if you read through this, and this is, I only read it now for the second time. What I think is happening is they're aligning the CSP program to the SPLA program, that you have similar options in both programs. That might make it easier to merge, but what it definitely does is open up the market to a lot more players. So Microsoft has been handing out CSP statuses left, right, and center. SPLA is always been, well, more of a black box. In reading this announcement for the second time, I think what they're doing is opening up the market even more. So as a Microsoft end customer, you will get a ton of new partners to choose from that can host your solutions for you.
Still seems like a club to me because you need a special status. So right now, see, every Microsoft partner is by definition a CSP. I mean, it's the same Microsoft partner agreement. It doesn't change whether you are a hoster or not hoster. It's just the same Microsoft partner agreement. So becoming a CSP, at least tier 2, is very easy. This looks like a separate status, which probably won't be also handed over to everyone very easily. We'll see. But there's probably a reason for this name that I highlighted. So, will it be given to every SPLA partner? That's my first question. Will you have to choose between traditional SPLA partners and CSP hosters? Will we see a mix of SPLA/CSP licensing? Because for end clients, so let's assume the best case. Let's assume the best case. Every SPLA provider right now that runs their own data center and hosts solutions for their clients will now be able, and that's a positive thing, in addition to allowing their end clients to bring the licenses through software assurance, they will also allow their end clients to bring the licenses that are bought through CSP and even themselves resell those CSP licenses to them. Is it good? Of course. Flexibility, long-term planning, lots of things that are positive around here. Obviously, I every time when I see news like this, I assess them from 2 points of view: the goods and the bads, and I see where potential problems may be. As it is worded right now, it seems more positive than negative. So you're right.
I think that's true as well. The same happened previously with LSP partners, right? When the CSP program was launched, immediately you had this option to purchase your licenses through so many more different partners than just the select few that could offer you an EA. I think it's going that way now with this SPLA program as well. I don't think they're going to get rid of the SPLA program just yet, but I do think that eventually Microsoft is envisioning that everything needs to land in the Microsoft customer agreement. So in that sense, positioning CSP as the go-to platform, making it easier to contract whatever software or cloud services you need through that program is a first initial step in potentially consolidating everything.
Yes. That's roughly what what we've been discussing for many months until now in our close conversations. Uh, the only thing, again, for those who doesn't understand this, so it's not 100% positive move, because SPLA is more flexible for the end clients and actually less risky than CSP. So CSP is bringing the onus of license compliance back to the end clients, which, when they host workloads on an SPLA provider, is a mixed bag, because it's partially responsibility of the provider, partially of the end client. And sometimes it's fully on the SPLA provider, depending on how this is all configured. But the last bit is it actually won't affect directly the end clients, but well, it will. So let me explain this. So what's going on here? So right now, any SPLA provider, any services provider, if you run virtual machines from them, any workloads, you don't even necessarily know whether they run those virtual machines in their own data center, because they are allowed to rent data center capacity from a different provider. And for now, until October 2022, they can even offload those workloads to Amazon, AWS, Google, and Alibaba. What Microsoft is saying right now is that from the 1st of October 2022, they won't be able to do it. So if you pay a services provider fees for their services, plus licenses, plus everything in one sum, through one bill, they may still continue providing you services hosted on a large hyperscaler like Amazon AWS, or even Azure for that matter, and bill you through their own billing system. What Microsoft is effectively doing here is, I mean, there's a transition period until September 2025, so that's a pretty long one, 3 years still. If you work with a services provider like this, you will have to pay two bills, one for their services and the other one for the licenses from the hyperscaler. So that's changing procurement, that's affecting billing, that's affecting planning, that's affecting a lot of things. And I think behind the scenes, Microsoft is probably trying to squeeze SPLA out of the large hyperscalers. Why? We don't know. Big
So
strategy move, maybe. That's my view. So because let me explain why. Because right now, if you go to a hyperscaler, the SPLA offerings that you get from them for the licenses are very limited. So on AWS, for example, it's only SQL and recently Visual Studio plus RDS cells, but only for Visual Studio. And on Google Cloud, as far as I'm concerned, it's only SQL Server. So none of the other SPLA licenses may be purchased from those providers. So whether they will have to implement this, which is, to be honest, it's such a massive headache for hyperscalers that they may even say, you know what, we don't want to do that. Or they will just be squeezed out.
so
Good for...
did you check the footnote for this? The listed providers where they state it includes Alibaba, Amazon Web Services, Google, and Microsoft.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's the list. That's the list.
why are they listing
So
them? Why are they listing themselves as well?
because they have always been listing themselves as a part of the listed providers. So remember when they in 2019, when Microsoft introduced the limitation to bring your own licenses to dedicated hardware, they did it for themselves as well. However, they always have the back door of Azure Hybrid benefits. So sorry, Microsoft are not completely honest there. So sorry, I'm just because half of our client base are services providers. So I'm looking at this from their point of view, and I'm thinking, all the SPLA providers, like small ISVs, that Microsoft in the recent years, through audits, other incentives, and not necessarily incentives, with carrot and the stick, they forced or convinced or incentivized them to move their client workloads from their own data centers, whether small or big, to Azure or any other providers. So Microsoft pulled everybody to Azure, obviously, because they want to sell Azure. Now they're saying, thank you that you've moved all these workloads. Now, sorry, your business is screwed because you can't do it the same way that you're doing it right now. So small ISVs and services providers, from my point of view, are going to be hit by this massively. That's a rug. I'm sorry, but that's a rug pull from my point. I mean, you may have a different point of view here, but you have your relationship with the end client. You have one bill, you have one service, everything is bundled. Now, even if you move the workloads to Azure, now from the 1st of October 2025, in 3 years' time, this would have to be switched to two billings, and the client will effectively have two relationships with yourselves and with Azure. If you have a good if you provide huge value, like for example, you are an ERP or a CRM or a fantastic application, maybe that's not a problem. But if you provide very limited additional value to just basic infrastructure, say you just, guys, we're sysadmins, we're outsourcers, we manage the services for the client, then there's a big potential to lose that relationship with the end client through that change. So I personally know two providers that will have to change their entire strategy, and one of them is big, based on this announcement. And I actually got it in my email this morning from one of them.
So if I understand this correctly, does this mean that if right now you have a hosting partner or a partner providing a certain service to you, which they build on one of these listed providers, they will now have to go and move all their subscriptions to the customer's own billing engine, so to say, their own account, in order for the customer to receive the consumption from these listed providers invoice themselves, and then the ISV or whatever needs to send their own invoice for the service they manage around it. It can't
Yeah.
be an all-up cost anymore, right?
Yeah. So to give you an example, if you host something on Amazon for your own clients, and as a part of that is the SQL Server database. Sorry, I'm going a bit geeky. If that SQL Server database is licensed per core, then you can still pay for those workloads, not licenses, in this case workloads, on a pay-as-you-go basis, to AWS and just bill your end client through yourselves. Easy as that. But if that SQL Server is licensed per user on a subscription license basis, user subscription license basis, so-called SALs, subscriber access licenses, then right now you can bill them for those SALs, your end users, and host SQL Server. You need to tell Amazon that you're licensing the SQL as SALs. Still billing the client directly. But if you want to keep this licensing model after the 1st of October 2025, so in 3 years again, you won't be able to bill them for SALs. They would have to buy services from you, but pay for the SALs to AWS or Amazon or Google or Alibaba. And for now, as far as I can see, so Amazon is changing this. I'm not sure about the other providers. So for now, for all these large hyperscalers, micromanaging those subscriber access licenses is a huge headache. It's a compliance issue. In all the SPLA audits, the biggest shortfalls, 80% of the shortfalls, are not sitting in Windows Data Center or SQL Server, even SQL Server Enterprise. They are with improper configurations of subscriber access licenses of users, authorized users. And that is when that is why if you receive an audit bill of $10 million, $8 million of that will be user licenses. I give you 99% probability that's how it's going to be structured. And this will be offloaded to large hyperscalers. Will they want to micromanage that? Will Microsoft have to, in 3 years, to change the licensing programs again to make it easier for them? Whether they want to completely squeeze out large outsourcers, or are they trying to simplify the compliance playing field here? Imagine auditing all this as well. It's not easy. I don't know. I'm not sure. So, what's your opinion, Floris? So, do you stand on? Okay, let me rephrase this. Is this announcement good overall for end clients? Is it positive?
So initially, when I read this, I thought the people that were gonna get hit the most by it were these listed providers. But the way I understand it now, the biggest headache is going to be with the end customer.
But is it still more positive than negative, or more negative than positive?
Well, this is a SPLA program update. So within SPLA, I think this is very negative for end customers.
Okay.
It might mean I'm going to have to reread it again, but it might mean an immediate push from customers to move out of SPLA into CSP.
Do you think Microsoft are watching channels like yours and ours and actually release these updates to measure the temperature in the room? Because there must be a reason why they announced it a month prior.
I don't think they've not necessarily watched these channels. I do think that they have a very big audience, and there's so many stakeholders that are affected by this
Yeah.
that they will definitely test the bath water first before moving forward with this. But when I read this, like initially the blog that we read where Brad Smith was outlining, oh yeah, we realized that we need to make some changes to our hosters and our service providers. Um, that was quite. This is what might happen, and this reads more like this is what we're going to do. Doesn't mean that when they implement it, and if they implement it, that they might make changes toward the future. Like, remember that time when they put in that very simple line in the product terms that if you sold your second-hand licenses, or if you had from SA licenses,
Yeah.
I mean, you need to maintain your on-prem licenses as a base license for continuing that from SA. When they included that sneakily into the product terms, it had such a big backlash that they quickly took it out again in order to not, like I think they even got sued over it, but to not bring it to court maybe. So I can imagine that if the effect of this might be so big that they need to re-envision how they want to do this. I thought that this final point was one of the lighter ones, but hearing you talk through it now, I think this is one of the biggest changes that they're going to push through. If they're actually going to push it through, I think many SPLA customers will be quite unhappy.
Especially, I think, especially SaaS and IC.
Yeah.
You may be paying for something like Dropbox right now, and then suddenly Dropbox turn around in 3 year time and say, by the way, you now have to pay you now have to pay two bills, one to us and the other one to Azure, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's. But then, well, they have 3 years to fix it or handhold all their clients, and maybe gradually transition this. It's a big one. It's a big one. So, by the way, I have to correct myself. So I reread this. It actually seems like everything is changing in October. So every single point here mentions October somehow. Well, we still have 33 days to think this through, release articles, analytical pieces, videos, and then when the actual news hit, when they change the actual websites, the product terms and SPLA, that's when we'll probably have to update all our training resources as well, and all our guidelines and frameworks, and however we work with our clients to help them with their licensing.
Fun times,
Good.
right?
Well, at least it's not. I mean, it's been boring. It's not boring anymore. So, so Floris, thank you. I actually, live kicks in. I have to jump on the client call in a minute. So, everybody who's joined us live, thank you for joining us and watching this. Please, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to this channel and also to License Q. If you go to SAMexpert's page on YouTube, there are recommended channels at the bottom, and you can find Floris's channel there. I mean, Floris, if you want to put the link to your channel into the chat, by all means, do that.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it makes it exciting. So, well, yeah, I always enjoy our conversations. Thanks, everybody. Have a good September, and follow us and watch us. We'll update you on what's going to change, really. Anyway, cheers. Goodbye.
Bye.